And now, from the action on the strip, we bring you to the serenity of Hanover, Germany, where tonight, Ukrainian giant Wladimir Klitschko continues to polish his credentials, or attempt to, in search of a heavyweight title shot. Klitschko will be fighting against South African Corrie Sanders. Wladimir, coming off of a 10-round destruction of the very cautious Jameel McCline in his last fight, tonight takes on Sanders, who has fought only 3 rounds in the last 3 years. This could be brief, it could be explosive. Once again, back at ringside with George Foreman. George, looking back again at Jones-Ruiz, now that Roy Jones has seen how his skills match up with a heavyweight, could he conceive of fighting the giants of the division, Lennox Lewis and the Klitschko brothers, or should he content himself with the guys closer to his size, like Chris Byrd and Evander Holyfield?
Oh, no, if you're David, you've already slain Goliath. What difference does it make if he was 6 inches taller? Stay with the giants. Keep the glory going.
A brave idea, certainly, and not one, Larry Merchant, that we're certain Jones will approach, because when you interviewed him in the ring afterward, he seemed to be dissing both Holyfield and Byrd, who strike many people as the obvious choices. Why would he do that?
Roy Jones makes his own movies about himself, goes his own way. And if it's true, as I've heard, that there are no promotional handcuffs on him, he could fight anyone, which means that after Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson finish their business later this year, and after Jones presumably defends his light heavyweight championship one more time, he could be tempted into fighting a big man, Lewis, or a big name, Tyson. Whatever, the heavyweight conversation has sure gotten more interesting.
You're talking back down to 175 pounds and then back up to fight 250-pound fighters? Quite a trip. Well, let's get ready now for the heir apparent, the man regarded by so many experts as the next big thing in the heavyweight division, Wladimir Klitschko. George Foreman, he's the one who's under the microscope here. What have you seen?
So far, so good. Now he's got to get out there, not only win, but he's got to make the people like him. After what Jones did recently, and of course Tyson and Lewis, you got to go out there and make them love you now, the whole world, not just here.
Well, and there are skeptics about Klitschko, and they point out that the last big guy who was put into this position of the heir apparent, whom we helped to put there, quite frankly, Larry Merchant, Michael Grant, was destroyed when he finally got his chance. Why should Klitschko be any different?
The evidence. Klitschko at the age of 20 won an Olympic gold medal. Grant at 20 first put on boxing gloves. Klitschko's talent seems to match his star potential. The star potential of Grant always depended on whether his ability as a fighter would match it. And finally, the big trainers, the top guys in the U.S., all of whom were never fully convinced about Grant, think that Klitschko is the next best thing. Of course, the next best thing, Jim, sometimes becomes the last big bust, but he's got my vote.
All right. And certainly he's big enough to occupy the space. Let's take a look at the tail of the tape for Wladimir Klitschko against Corrie Sanders. Introducing a new wrinkle here, reach now being measured by us from the armpit to the fingertips, and you can see that Wladimir has a 2-inch advantage there to go with his 11-year age advantage, 1.5-inch height edge, and then the regular reach measurement, which we now call wingspan, fingertip to fingertip across the shoulders, a 3-inch advantage for Wladimir. He looked chiseled and tight at 242. Corrie Sanders is a 224-pound fighter with a 1 golf handicap. Rules of the bout from our unofficial ringside scorer, Harold Letterman.
The rules for the Klitschko-Sanders fight: there is no 3 knockdown rule. Only the referee can stop the fight. And an accidental headbutt, we go to the scorecards after 4 rounds, and you cannot be saved by the bell in any round, including the 12th and final round.
Meine Damen und Herren, der Herausforderer aus Südafrika, Mr. Corrie Sanders!
Stand up for the champions, for the champions, stand up.
And here comes Corrie Sanders. The graphic tells you everything about his activity level in the past few years. His last appearance here on HBO against Hasim Rahman in the year 2000 was memorable. He knocked Rahman down and almost through the ropes before ultimately succumbing himself to a 7th round knockout loss.
When I asked him yesterday at our fighter meetings if the image of him as a kind of gentleman boxer of enormous athletic talent who never really exploited his talent was true, he said, absolutely. 10 years ago, he thought of coming to the U.S., as did his countryman Franz Balsa, who he defeated 4 times as an amateur, but he elected to stay in South Africa and never really became a dedicated fighter. One additional note, Jim, the reason he is Klitschko's opponent tonight is that a number of American fighters who were offered this opportunity for far more money than they had ever made before, all turned it down. Klitschko is not perceived as a good career move right now.
But for Corrie Sanders, it's a nothing to lose proposition. He says that if he happens to score a victory tonight, he'll try to come to America and rekindle his career. If not, this may be the end of the road for a guy who just recently won his golf club championship outside Pretoria.
Right, and he wants to get on the celebrity golf tour and then on the senior golf tour.
One other thing which has limited Sanders' number of big appearances in the heavyweight division is his punching power. And he has considerable power among the biggest hitters in the division.
Und hier kommt den Mann, auf den die deutschen Boxfans.
Slightly different procedure here than in the United States. The ring announcer cueing the ring entrances for the fighters. So Carsten Speck will now give a big intro to Wladimir Klitschko before Klitschko walks in.
Box Promotion in Hamburg. Dr. Wladimir Klitschko!
Mistake, he called him by his brother's name. Somebody should tell Carsten, and he's being informed right now, that it is Wladimir Klitschko and not Vitali who's on his way to the ring.
The ring announcer is an actor, and he flubbed his line.
Well, frankly, there's no shortage of people in the boxing public who have yet to adequately sort out for themselves the difference between Wladimir and Vitali. And that confusion will probably obtain until one of them scores a big enough win to move front and center in the division.
Well,
That
Wladimir,
reminds me of that commercial at home when that guy calls out the wrong name.
Yep.
Say, well, how would you like to get out of here? That's how that fella feels now, the announcer.
well, Wladimir charmed us yesterday when he turned up at our fighter meeting wearing blue suede shoes, did a card trick worthy of any great card trickster, and finally told us that after this fight, he's moving near his brother in Beverly Hills, California.
And since the card trick essentially amounted to three-card Monte, we suggested perhaps he should live in Manhattan, where he can have a second career.
Yeah, and learn more tricks from the great Ricky Jay.
So now with both fighters in the ring, further ceremony from the ring announcer Carsten Speck.
Wladimir Klitschko!
And he has straightened out his Klitschkos and has the right fighter in the ring now. Younger brother, Wladimir. Older brother, Vitali, is ranked as the #1 contender at the moment by both the WBA and the WBC, but Corrie Sanders doesn't have to worry about him tonight. He's worrying about Wladimir, who is not highly ranked by the other governing bodies, partially because he holds a marginalized title belt. And as Carsten Speck continues his introductions in German, he'll be introducing 2 judges who've made a long trip to from the United States, Clark Sammartino and John Stewart, along with Axel Gilke, the German judge. Most of us expect that Sammartino, Stewart, and Gilke should have little need to sharpen their pencils tonight. Particularly since, as you can probably see, this is a relatively small ring, under the normal dimensions of 20 feet by 20 feet.
It's an 18-foot ring, and maybe not that.
In the boxing vernacular, it's a phone booth.
Und nun zum amtierenden Weltmeister Wladimir Klitschko. Sein Alter 26 Jahre. Seine Größe 2 Meter. Er brachte beim Wiegen ein Gewicht von 110
George, what will the very small ring mean to this fight?
A lot of clinching if you're not careful, because you got two opponents with long arms, and they'll find themselves holding on a lot more than punching if you're not careful. Not enough room to punch.
37 durch K.O.
The record for Corrie Sanders, a loss early in his career to Nate Tubbs, brother of former title belt holder Tony Tubbs, and then the knockout loss to Rahman in the year 2000. Since that time, he's fought 3 rounds in 3 years. A 1-round knockout of Michael Spratt and a 2-round knockout of Otis Tisdale in Oklahoma City. Wladimir Klitschko suffered 1 loss in his career. In his first fight in his hometown of Kiev in the Ukraine, he ran out of gas in the 11th round against Ross Purity, an American veteran. And Purity was hired by Corrie Sanders as a sparring partner to help them prepare for this fight. Other than that, 40 wins, 37 knockouts for Wladimir.
Yeah, since that fight, Klitschko has modified his style to be more suitable to a big guy, and he's had 16 knockouts, 1 fight weight the distance, and that's when he beat up Chris Byrd, knocking him down twice.
Klitschko's most recent appearance was December 7 in Las Vegas, Nevada. And here's a look at referee Gennaro Rodriguez, who'll be the man charged with the responsibility of trying to avoid all those glitches George Foreman talked about in the small ring, or this small ring. But speaking of Vladimir's fight against Jamil McCline on December 7, some American ringside reporters, media types, were scathingly critical of Klitschko for being so cautious in allowing McCline to simply stay away from him for 10 rounds before finally finishing the deal. As one magazine writer, Bill Detloff, pointed out, however, nobody else in the division was actually racing to fight the 6'6" McCline.
Right, and all Klitschko did was pitch a shutout and hit a home run in the 10th inning.
National anthems. Corrie Sanders has a love affair with his nation of South Africa, and you can almost feel his heart.
An astonishing number of women watch on television, and you can see why.
And incidentally, if they had played the national anthems of every country in which Wladimir has lived, we'd have been here all night. Because he has lived in Kurdistan, Kazakhstan, Russia, Lithuania, the Czech Republic, Ukraine, and Germany. And as Larry just told you, he'll soon be moving to the USA.
And he has fought in 15 different cities in Germany.
You're saying some of that astonishing number of women may have met him personally?
Well, they've sure seen him.
You should put a smile on his face. It reminds me of Wilder. Remember with the young Frankenstein? Trying to make him dance, but everybody was afraid in the audience.
Putting on the Ritz. Or as Peter Boyle put it, putting on a Ritz.
I give you instructions. I want you to obey my commands at all times. Punches here are good. Punches here are good. Good luck to you. Take low.
Wladimir Klitschko seems so perfect, you wonder what's wrong with him. Can Corrie Sanders find out?
Many in boxing will not share that enthusiasm, Larry, until he produces more quick knockouts and appears to attack more aggressively. But Wladimir says, in the heavyweight division, you cannot take a risk. And against Sanders, he's fighting a big punch.
And as you can see, the small ring doesn't really help Klitschko, but he likes to jump back after a punch and before a punch. He's aggressive, but he loves jumping backwards.
Good jab by Sanders, got in.
And Sanders
got Vladimir's attention.
And Sanders loves his movement too, so you would like to see one get a little more aggressive to make this small ring work.
Wladimir Klitschko, usually an aggressive jabber. As Corrie Sanders lines up in his southpaw profile, it may be more difficult for Wladimir to get the jab in. Hard left hand by Corrie Sanders moved Klitschko back to the center of the ring off the ropes. If Klitschko does have a bad habit, Larry, it is that sometimes he backs straight up with his head up against an attacking fighter. That's the kind of thing that could cause big problems against Sanders.
Well, if you're tall like that, it doesn't matter because you can almost see over the top. It's the shorter guys backing up who get into a lot of trouble. You got the reach and height, you can do whatever you like.
Sanders is holding his gloves high, which is how Ross Purity fought Klitschko. Kept his hands up. Made Klitschko punch a lot.
Sanders acknowledges that he has a natural tendency to trade punches, and he has a natural tendency to square his body up and fight. He says he'll have to fight both those tendencies here tonight because he wants to try to present a more elusive target to Wladimir. Left hook lands for Klitschko, right hand to the body. Left hand by Sanders, snapped Klitschko's head back.
A lot of that southpaws can get you just when ordinarily you can't be gotten because they are just on the wrong side.
That may be one of the few times we've seen Klitschko hit with a good solid punch by a good puncher. He gets hit again and holds.
The problem Klitschko is having, he's got his knees bent to lower his height some more.
And Klitschko goes down on a huge left hand inside by Corrie Sanders. Up at the count of 7
with his eye cut.
And there's a cut over Klitschko's left eye, right on the eyebrow. Long time to go in the round. Wladimir down a second time.
And the next big thing is about to become the last big bust if he go down again, although the clock is running out on this round.
So Wladimir Klitschko is down twice in the opening round against Corrie Sanders, and all of Germany holds its breath.
And he wobbles back to the corner.
Is this okay? Are you okay?
As they speak German in Klitschko's corner, our interpreter is Johannes Willerbeck.
Yeah. Come on, go in there, boy. Be careful. Remember your training, boy. Remember all you practiced today. Keep this here. Hold this right here. This is okay. It's no problem. Open your mouth.
Here are questions being asked. A perfect left hand asked of Klitschko. He's never been asked before. How does he deal with adversity? That's what we all wanted to see. And he has got a lot of adversity to deal with right here.
Well, we know what Hasim Rahman was able to do in this situation. He was able to come back and knock Sanders out. Now Klitschko's down a third time, and there are 2 minutes, 53 seconds to go in this round.
And he's not seeing that left hand come. He just cannot see the left hand that Sanders is hitting him with.
And he's attacking to try to get out of trouble instead of holding. And this is not going to go well. Another knockdown, the fourth time, and the referee, Gennaro Rodriguez, stops the fight, and thus ends the Vitaly Klitschko, or the Wladimir Klitschko Express.
You can look at Klitschko's body. There's still not much sweat on him at all. Leaving out of the dressing room, waiting for the shoulder in. Body is dry as a bone. It can happen to anybody at any time. You've got to loosen up before you get into the ring. We've seen it too many times before.
Well, the one thing that was unknown about Wladimir coming into this fight was what would happen if he got tagged by a legitimate puncher. Now we know.
Well, what happened to him is what happens to most heavyweights when they get hit by a big heavyweight's best shot. But nevertheless, this is a shock to the boxing world. And once again,
I think it's a shock to your world, Larry.
No, I
don't
think
think the boxing world is that surprised. I mean, it doesn't surprise you sometimes when the guys fight.
It shocks me, certainly.
A lot of different places he fought, and it's not a surprise. Of course, you would think that Corrie Sanders would be the least guy to do this to him, but fought a lot of hometown fights in different places.
Well, let's just point out that it isn't just HBO which had been enthusiastic about Wladimir Klitschko. He's been #1 in the Ring magazine rankings, unaffected by politics, for more than a year. So there are many who had anointed him as the
how affected everybody else with politics. You'd be surprised.
Well, I would. I'm not sure what you're referring to, George.
No, I mean, you just can't.
People saw him as a great
and he
prospect.
still is a great prospect.
Well,
he got caught cold.
I think now there's the question that was asked of him, he did not answer.
He can come back
the way a fighter is supposed to. George, you're the one who pointed out that what a great heavyweight needs is not only the ability to punch, but to take a punch. Yeah. And he did not take that punch.
I like the fight. He was on his way up when the ref called the fire out. I like that. You keep getting up. That's a man. He's got a future in this sport, and he's not done.
Meanwhile, let's focus on the winner. That's the 39th win against 2 losses for Corrie Sanders, and at age 37, he becomes an overnight sensation.
He wasn't even afraid when he got into the ring. Corrie Sanders just walked right in, looking and winking his eye at me.
Maybe he felt that, as big a puncher as himself, shouldn't have to be afraid of anybody.
Yeah, I would expect him to be a little bit more nervous.
Well, he had nothing to lose. I mean, nobody expected Corrie Sanders to be here for any reason other than as an opponent for Wladimir Klitschko.
Right. The 3 rounds in 3 years. He came in here, he said he had gone to a psychologist for confidence. He shaved off his mustache for a new look. He got in top shape, and he threw that big left hand.
Yeah, that straight left hand, that started everything.
And Klitschko just couldn't see it coming.
It all started badly when the ring announcer introduced him by his older brother's name. And now, his older brother is the one who will move into the spotlight.
I would still like to have a piece of Klitschko. I think there's a lot of money and a lot of championship belts still awaiting him. You just can't come out of your corner and out of the dressing room dry like that, not even warmed up. He didn't even bounce up in the corner, just sit there staring. Got to get loose.
The last heavyweight you pointed out was dry when he came to the ring was Michael Grant against Jamil McCline, and he was gone in about 40 seconds.
Yeah, for the bigger guys, a lot of us, we really need to warm up because you catch us on the cheek and the legs just won't hold us up.
Corrie Sanders standing at the side of the ring and looking down at George Foreman as if to say, well, George, you understand. You and I are in the same fraternity. Heavy hands.
Well, and once again, we have another year of the upset.
It continues.
It continues. We saw Vernon Forrest get upset. We saw Timmy Austin get upset. We saw Roy Jones beat up a big guy, even though it wasn't an upset. Something that surprised a lot of people.
I tell you, Roy Jones and guys that size can beat up a lot of big guys. Get yourself your 195-pounder and you quick-handed, you can go a long ways in this division because the big guys are sitting ducks.
There are not words to express the level of shock in this arena. The Klitschkos had risen to the level of folk heroes in the United States. There's a tight shot of older brother Vitaly, who suddenly moves ahead of his younger brother in the pecking order of ringside experts.
A boxing expert friend who advised me a lot, his name is Heinz Matson. He told me that Klitschko was just maybe a fluke and that one test and he'll be out of it. And I told him not so. I don't know who's going to win this argument.
Well, as you say, he'll be 27 March 25. There's plenty of time to retool. But the skeptic would say you can't learn to take a punch.
Yeah, but he got up. He got up every time. You got to give him that credit.
Final CompuBox numbers. Corrie Sanders, by far the more aggressive fighter early, 17 out of 61. Wladimir never really got going. Power shots told the story of the fight, obviously. No point in looking at the jab numbers. Corrie Sanders landing 38% of his power shots. Wladimir wasn't defending himself all that well. And it's a knockout victory. A devastating knockout victory as the referee stops the fight after the fourth knockdown of Wladimir Klitschko in fewer than 2 rounds. And now let's go to Larry Merchant standing by with the man of the moment, Corrie Sanders.
Thank you, Jim. Congratulations, Corrie. Does this mean you're going to have to postpone your golf career?
That it looks like it, yes. Well, like I said, I always think that I had, opportunity to beat him, and I'm one of the good heavyweights in the world, and I'm sure tonight prove it.
Did you know something about him, see something about him that made you feel that A, he was open for that left hand, and that B, he hadn't really been tested by a big punch?
I honestly think he doesn't be tested by a good punch, to be honest. Last night Lennox Lewis phoned me and he said to me, Corrie, put pressure on a guy, don't let it dictate the guy, he can't take it, he's scared, you got to put pressure on him. And that's when when I got in tonight, I thought that's not going to hit me with a couple of shots, which didn't hurt me, and I thought, go forward and attack him.
Are you friends with Lennox Lewis, that he would call you up to give you a pep talk?
Yeah, we know it. It's very great of Lennox to do it. We belong to the same promoters and so. And, like I said, he just phoned me last night, and I was surprised too, and it's a great honor for me.
You've talked about going to a sports psychologist to give you some positive thoughts. You cut off your mustache to change your look. You got in top shape. Lennox Lewis called you. Were all these things coming together for you tonight?
I believe so. Like I said, it's the first time that I've been to a sports psychologist, and it's fantastic. Everything worked like I wanted to work it, and tonight proved it.
All right, let's take a look at some of the knockdowns, and you tell us what you saw and whether you felt how vulnerable he was.
Well, when I caught him there, I could have seen his eyes. He's got like a skate, and I knew that, he can't take shots. And that's when I thought, you got to go and just, catch him with a great left. And which definitely happened, and he was gone. I knew, it's just a matter of time and going to catch him again.
And so that even when you got to round 2, you knew it was over?
For sure, when he walked to the corner, he was gone. I know myself also, when a guy catches you once, it's hard to get back. And which surprised me basically tonight was, he didn't use his jab like I know he used it. And I took advantage of it.
I know this is unexpected also at this time. Do you have any plans now to either fight Vitaly Klitschko, who challenged you twice in the ring? What was that?
No, I don't know. My opinion, I think he's a bad sportsman, to be honest. You know, you win some, you lose some, and he came to me and I'll take back and I'll get you back and all that because I beat his brother. So, you know, well, bad luck for him. He had the title, and I'm not looking at him.
Thank you very much. Again, congratulations, Corrie Sanders.
Thank you very much.
Jim?
And Wladimir Klitschko, following his crushing defeat, waited in the ring graciously. He too now stands by with Larry.
Thank you, Jim. Wladimir, did you not take this opponent seriously enough?
I take seriously enough, and of course I product mistakes in the fight, and of course I have to analyze that in the future. And for me it means welcome to the boxing business, because all big champions was losing the fights, and so it's happening. And of course I will give my best, and I will have a rematch with Corrie Sanders, and then I will show what I can do.
Are you telling us that you have a rematch clause in your contract?
Believe me, I will get the rematch. I have the right on that.
All right. Were you having difficulty seeing his left hand, or did that first punch come as such a shock that you never fully recovered?
Of course, he's a tough fighter, and he has a really quick hands. And for me, it's decision point that I will more focused on the fight, and of course, I will do it in the future.
Let's take a look at the fight as it unfolded, and you tell us what you see, Wladimir. This is the first knockdown.
So, of course, the mistake was that I would like to shoot him with my right hand, and he was faster than I am.
He got under your your right hand, and he threw his left hand.
Exactly.
And by that time, do you recall, were you conscious at all? Do you know what was going on?
Of course, it's difficult to focus on the fight if you got the punch, and so what I can do, I just can show in the future that I'm better.
Between rounds, what were you thinking?
Between rounds, of course, I have to focus on his fast hands, and actually that's it.
Your brother Vitaly was so upset after the fight that he challenged Corrie Sanders. So who's going to get to fight him first, you or your brother?
No, it was nothing bad between Corrie Sanders and Vitaly. Vitaly just said that he will return back the belt to the family, and that's it. Of course, Vitaly is right now contender #1 in WBC, and I hope he will fight against Lennox Lewis. And with Corrie Sanders, I will take a rematch.
I know you're being philosophical, but how disappointed are you?
I'm really disappointed on my person right now, but I know that I just have to learn. Long life, and you have always learn.
Thank you very much, Wladimir. Jim?
Long life, he says. Plenty of time to learn. Well, he just learned a great deal, I think, in less than 3.5 minutes did Wladimir Klitschko. George, let's talk about Wladimir first. You say he can come back from this. What are the steps he should take?
First of all, he's got to take some time off. He's been traveling all over the globe like a globetrotter. Take some time out. Understand, nothing's wrong with him. He just got caught with one good one. Joe Louis, George Foreman, you name them. We've all had it happen to us. He can come back and even bigger.
What about Sanders? He just projected himself into the big picture thinking in the heavyweight division. What should he do?
Sanders is carrying a hammer around in his glove, no doubt about it. And that big hammer is going to be around. He's here to stay, no doubt about it.
So you think he should come to America and seek bigger fights?
I think wherever he's just came from, he should go back and get some more of it.
All right. Larry Merchant returning from the interviews, and what are your final thoughts on the sudden demise of Wladimir Klitschko?
Well, one is how the heavyweight chessboard changes so much. Last week we saw Roy Jones jump right into the middle of it. This week we saw Wladimir Klitschko get knocked off of that chessboard. Questions that we have in our minds. If you recall, before the fight I said he seemed so perfect, what's wrong with him? And was Corrie Sanders the one to ask the questions that nobody else had asked before? Turned out we got the answer. And I don't know that you recover as quickly as George seems to think you can. But one thing we know is that there is some kind of a rematch if he wants it. And the other thing is, if he's going to move to Beverly Hills, I'm not sure that's the place to get your career back together.
I wonder if that plan might change now. A quick personal mea culpa, incidentally. Nobody's enthusiasm for Wladimir Klitschko was greater than my own. I've been telling you, the audience, and anybody who would listen for a year now, that I thought he was ready to fight Lennox Lewis. I was wrong. Surely not for the first time, and certainly not for the last. Meanwhile,